Soulcalibur.
Rumors of a Soulcaliber Remaster started circulating around the web recently. Amid these rumors, I figured it was a great time to talk about this franchise and my love-hate relationship with it. Soulcaliber released in 1998 as a sequel to the arcade and PlayStation exclusive game Soul Edge. Now, the series might not have the brand power of franchises like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but the upgraded Dreamcast version of the first Soulcaliber game does have a Metacritic score of 98. Not only is this the highest rated fighting game by a landslide, but it's ranked as the 4th greatest game of all time. While I may not agree with that accolade, I do believe the early Soulcaliber games were absolutely groundbreaking in the fighting game genre for many reasons. In those previously mentioned fighting games, you are strictly side-scrolling. You can go forwards, backwards, up, or down, and that's it. Your character focused so hard on mastering martial arts that they forgot how to move left and right. In Soulcaliber, that ability to move left and right not only exists, but is absolutely necessary if you want to succeed and avoid constantly getting thrown out of the ring. Sidestepping wasn't a brand new mechanic for Namco fighting games, as Tekken 3 introduced it a year prior, but Soulcaliber has something that Tekken doesn't have, and that's weapons. Unlike Tekken, in Soulcaliber pretty much every character uses a weapon of some sort, and that gives the combat a unique and more exciting feel. You've heard the saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, but I say don't bring your fist to a sword fight, which is why Soulcaliber is clearly the better of these two games. Now, in 1998, I was 1, and I've also never owned a Dreamcast, so needless to say, I didn't really get to experience the first Soulcaliber game firsthand. Instead, my relationship with this game began with Soulcaliber 2 for the GameCube in 2003. Now, Soulcaliber 2 was also available on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, but the GameCube version had by far the best exclusive guest character, Link from The Legend of Zelda. To be honest, I didn't even like most fighting games at the time, and probably wouldn't have even tried this game if Link was not in it. But being a massive fan of Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, that was my selling point, and I'm glad I did try it because it ended up being one of my favorite titles for the GameCube. 2003 was before the real days of the internet. I mean, it was a thing, but it wasn't used like it is today, so I didn't even know that each console got their own exclusive guest character. On Xbox, you got the comic book anti-hero Spawn, which doesn't make much sense but is dope nonetheless. And on the PlayStation, you got Heihachi Mishima, which is lame as because if I wanted to play as Heihachi, I would just go play Tekken. But it came out in a recent interview with one of the game's producers that Cloud Strife was supposed to be the exclusive PS2 character, but it fell through last minute due to a licensing issue. Considering Final Fantasy is probably my favorite video game franchise of all time, that news disappoints the hell out of me, but there's no sense in crying over spilt milk. In 2005, Soulcaliber 3 came out as a PS2 exclusive, and while the game received some criticism for a lack of online play and character balancing, I disagree with those complaints. You see, Soulcaliber was different than a lot of other fighting games in the sense that its success wasn't driven by the competitive community. I'm not saying there is no competitive aspect to it, but it's a lot more like Super Smash Bros. In the sense that it's relatively easy to pick up and play for newcomers, but deep enough that it's worth developing your skills. Unlike Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, which have an extreme learning curve, Soulcaliber also did a great job of making enjoyable story modes with rewarding character unlocks. Soulcaliber 3 even introduced a new character creation mode. Unfortunately, it all goes pretty much downhill from there for the franchise. The next Soulcaliber game released was an action-adventure spin-off called Soulcaliber Legends for the Nintendo Wii. And honestly, even the biggest fan of the franchise will probably have a hard time enjoying this one. The controls are super janky, the story is pretty garbage, and it's extremely repetitive. It's a type of game that would only be fun as a couch co-op drinking game or something. The game has a Metacritic score of 52. So yeah. Soulcaliber 4 came out less than a year later in 2008. The game's guest characters were from Star Wars, which is kind of cool but also super random. While I think Soulcaliber 4 is a solid game, its biggest problem is the bar being so high for the franchise that it wasn't nearly as good or innovative as any of the 3 previous mainline games. Being the first game in the franchise for the PS3 and Xbox 360, I feel like the developers banked way too much on the online capabilities and basically decided to not care at all about the story mode. Each character has their own unique storyline, but each one can be completed in like 20 minutes, which is obviously not enough time to actually accomplish any solid storytelling. After Soulcaliber 4 came out, Namco released Soulcaliber Broken Destiny, which is basically Soulcaliber 4 Lite. The game's guest character was Kratos from God of War, which is absolutely awesome, but unfortunately the game was a PSP exclusive, so not a lot of people have played it or even heard of it. Soulcaliber 5 came out a few years later, and this is where things get really greasy. This game makes Soulcaliber 4 look like a freaking masterpiece. Do you play Soulcaliber for the cool characters? Let's get rid of almost all of them and replace them with lame ones. Do you like interesting storylines in games? Let's make this one feel like the worst anime you've ever watched.
Are you sure the information was accurate? What was that?
Ezio from Assassin's Creed was the guest character in this game, which makes sense because what Assassin's Creed and Soulcaliber have in common is the franchises have both been mediocre since the release of this game. The failure that was Soulcaliber 5 led to a 6-year gap between it and Soulcaliber 6. And while Soulcaliber 6 is actually a pretty good game, it faces the same problem Soulcaliber 4 did. It's just not quite good enough to even come close to the highs of the earlier titles in the franchise. It also had some unfortunate luck of being released in the same year as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Dragon Ball FighterZ, which are both better fighting games, leading to most people not even knowing this game exists. Still, I do think it was a small step in the right direction for the franchise. It's 2023 now, and there is no concrete information about a Soulcaliber 7 being in the works, and if these rumors of a remake are true, I think Bandai Namco is doing the smartest thing possible. We are in the golden age of remakes and remasters. Just in the past few months, we've gotten Metroid Prime and Resident Evil 4. Final Fantasy VII is being made into an epic trilogy. This is giving new young gamers a chance to experience legendary games that came out before their time without the games feeling heavily dated. If some sort of Soulcaliber collection featuring 1, 2, and 3 comes to modern consoles, this will bring some life back into the franchise, which will surely create some hype for Soulcaliber 7. So thank you all so much for sticking around until the end of the video. If you're new to the channel, what I like to do here is give away a copy of the games I talk about in my videos to a random viewer. So if you'd like to experience the legendary Soulcaliber 2, all you have to do to enter is like, comment, and subscribe. Full giveaway details will be in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.